They say curiosity killed the cat. But let's be honest, nobody ever mentions what the cat discovered before it died. We all want to believe we live in a safe world, surrounded by normal people. Your neighbors, your coworkers, your closest friends, you think you know them. But the truth is, everyone is wearing a mask. And sometimes, if you look just a little too closely, the mask slips. My name is Ethan. I'm 24 years old, and until last summer, I was just an ordinary guy working a remote job in a quiet suburban neighborhood. My life was painfully routine. Wake up, make coffee, stare at my laptop, sleep. But everything changed the day the house across the street, which had been empty for 3 years, finally got a new owner. I didn't mean to spy. It started completely by accident. But what I saw through the window of that house over the course of 3 weeks wasn't just a secret. It was a web of lies that involved my own family, a missing person, and a truth so twisted that it almost cost me my life. The new neighbor was a young woman. Her name was Clara. She looked to be around my age, maybe a bit older, with pale skin and dark hair that she always wore tied back. She lived completely alone. No friends ever visited, no family helped her move in. But it wasn't her solitude that caught my attention. It was her behavior. Clara never opened her curtains during the day. Never. But every single night, precisely at 2 a.m., the light in her second-floor bedroom would turn on. She would stand by the window, completely still, looking out into the street. Not at my house, not at the cars, she was staring at the old, abandoned playground at the end of our cul-de-sac. She would stand there for exactly 10 minutes, whispering something to herself, and then turn off the light. One night, out of pure boredom, I decided to watch her through a pair of old binoculars I found in my father's garage. SFX, sound of heavy breathing, heart beating softly. As I focused the lenses on her window, my heart skipped a beat. Clara wasn't just staring at the playground. She was holding something in her hand. It was a thick, old leather diary, and she was crying. But what made my blood run cold was what happened next. She suddenly turned her head and looked directly into my binoculars. She knew I was watching. But instead of closing the blinds, she slowly smiled. And held up a sign written on a piece of paper. I barely slept that night. Ask my mother. What could my mother possibly have to do with a girl who just moved into the neighborhood? My mom, Sarah, was a gentle, retired high school teacher who spent her days gardening and cooking. She was the definition of harmless. The next morning at breakfast, I tried to bring it up casually. Hey Mom, did you see the new girl who moved in across the street? Clara? SFX, fork scraping sharply against a ceramic plate. My mother froze. The cheerful smile she always wore completely vanished. She didn't look at me, she just stared at her coffee cup. No, I haven't met her, my mother said, her voice dropping an octave. And Ethan. I want you to stay away from that house. The people who buy that property never stay long. Don't look over there, and don't talk to her. Why? I pressed. Do you know her? I said drop it, Ethan, she snapped. It was the first time in my life my mother had ever raised her voice at me. That afternoon, while my mom was out grocery shopping, I decided to do some digging. If my mother wasn't going to tell me the truth, the internet would. I started searching the history of the house across the street. For 3 years, it had been vacant. But before that, it belonged to a family named the Martins. As I scrolled through old local news articles, my jaw dropped. 5 years ago, the Martins' 19-year-old daughter, Lily Martin, disappeared without a trace. The case was never solved. I clicked on an old photo of Lily Martin. My hands began to shake. She looked exactly like Clara. The same dark hair, the same pale skin. But Lily was dead, or missing. Clara was her sister. And she was here for revenge. 2 days later, my mother went out of town to visit her sister for the weekend. I knew this was my only chance. At 2 a.m., the light in Clara's window didn't turn on. Instead, I saw her front door open slightly. She stood in the doorway, looked toward my house, nodded once, and went back inside, leaving the door ajar. She was inviting me over. Against every instinct in my body, I crossed the dark street. The air was freezing. I pushed Clara's front door open and stepped into the pitch-black hallway. "Clara?" I whispered. No answer. The house smelled of old paper and damp wood. I followed a faint light upstairs into the bedroom I had been watching for weeks. The room was empty of furniture, except for a single wooden chair in the center. Resting on the chair was the leather diary I had seen through my binoculars. I picked it up. It wasn't Clara's diary. It belonged to Lily Martin, the girl who vanished 5 years ago. SFX, rapid page flipping. I opened it to the final pages, dated just days before her disappearance. As I read the messy, panicked handwriting, the puzzle pieces finally slammed together into a horrific picture. "He won't leave me alone," Lily wrote. "He says if I tell anyone about the money he stole from the school fund, he will ruin my family. He tracks my phone. I tried to tell his wife, Sarah, but she didn't believe me. She told me to shut up. Arthur is a monster." Arthur. Arthur was my father. He had passed away 2 years ago from cancer. Everyone thought he was a saint, a respected school principal. But he wasn't. He had been embezzling money, and Lily Martin found out. Suddenly, I heard the floorboards creak behind me. I spun around. Standing in the doorway wasn't Clara. It was my mother. She was holding an old, rusted iron fireplace poker from our house, her eyes wide with a mixture of rage and profound sadness. "I told you to stay away from this house, Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Mom, what is this?" I gasped, holding the diary up. "Dad, and Lily? What did he do to her?" My mother took a step closer, tears streaming down her face. "Your father was a weak man, Ethan. He made a mistake with the school money, and that girl, Lily, was going to destroy our family. She was going to put your father in prison. We would have lost everything. The house, our reputation, your future. Where is she, Mom?" I shouted. My mother looked down at the floor, her expression turning cold. 5 years ago, she came to our house at night to confront him. They argued. Arthur pushed her, she fell down the basement stairs. It was an accident. But we couldn't call the police. So we buried her. Under the old playground at the end of the street. SFX, severe musical shock drop. My stomach turned. The playground. The place Clara stared at every single night. But what about Clara? I asked, backing away toward the window. She knows. She's the one who lured me here. My mother let out a bitter, hollow laugh. Ethan, look at the photos in that diary. Look closely. I frantically flipped back to the front of the diary. There was a picture of Lily and her family. There was no sister named Clara. Lily was an only child. There is no Clara, Ethan, my mother said softly, taking another step toward me. The people who bought this house last month are an elderly couple who are currently away on vacation. You've been seeing things. You've been so obsessed with this house, your guilt-ridden subconscious forced you to see what your father did. I looked out the window, down at the empty street. My mind was breaking. Had I hallucinated the girl? The sign? But just as my mother raised the iron poker, ready to protect her dark secret at any cost, the closet door behind her slowly creaked open. A pale, dark-haired figure stepped out into the moonlight. It was Clara. Or rather, it was Lily's ghost. Or maybe a girl who looked just like her, seeking justice. She didn't look at me. She placed a cold hand on my mother's shoulder. My mother froze, turning around, her eyes widening in pure terror as she let out a scream that echoed through the empty house. The police found Lily Martin's remains under the playground the next morning. I was the one who called them. My mother is currently serving a life sentence for her role in covering up the murder. As for the girl I saw in the window, the police checked the security cameras on our street. No one named Clara ever entered that house. The elderly owners confirmed nobody had a key. Some people tell me I had a psychological breakdown from grief. Others believe Lily's spirit came back to finish what she started. All I know is that every night at 2 a.m., I still look across the street at that dark, empty window. And sometimes I see the light turn on. SFX, music swells beautifully, then cuts to a soft whisper. Thank you for listening to this story. If it sent chills down your spine, hit that subscribe button for I Was Told, and turn on the notification bell. Let me know in the comments, do you think Clara was real, or was she a ghost looking for justice? Look closely at your neighbors tonight. You never know what's behind their curtains. See you in the next story.